Hustlers was one of my favourite films of 2019, a crime drama about a group of strippers who drug their clients and steal their money. Based on a true story, it was directed by Lorene Scafaria and stars an ensemble cast led by Jennifer Lopez and Constance Wu. Constance plays a rather unsuccessful stripper named Destiny, while J-Lo plays the confident, charismatic Ramona, who becomes Destiny's friend and mentor. After the 2008 financial crash, they turn to a life of crime. I wanted to discuss this film for a few reasons. First of all, Hustlers is just a really awesome movie and a fantastic star vehicle for Jennifer Lopez. Secondly, it takes place in an interesting time period. Recent enough that it feels kind of like the present day, but just long enough ago that the costumes are noticeably dated. And finally, I thought it would be fun to talk about the use of clothes in a movie whose defining feature is nudity. Or partial nudity anyway. But rest assured, this episode is totally safe for work.
You're in my seat. I'm so sorry.
Hi there, I'm Gavia Baker-Whitelaw and this is Behind the Seams, decoding the world of costume design.
It's just mostly Wall Street guys looking to spend money on pretty girls.
It's not unusual to see half-naked women on screen, but there's a big difference between normal underwear and the costumes worn by the strippers we see in Hustlers. As Dolly Parton once said, it costs a lot of money to look this cheap. Destiny and her co-workers don't necessarily show more skin than someone sunbathing at the beach. But thanks to the combination of bright, garish colours, reflective fabrics, zips, and straps, it's very obvious that this isn't normal lingerie. These are stripper outfits. When the main characters are at work, their clothes are purely tactical, chosen to extract money from men. They need to look eye-catching and sexually available. But when they're off the clock, we get a better idea of their real taste in clothes. Ramona's introduction is a total showstopper, a pole routine set to the Fiona Apple song, Criminal. She injects a surge of glamour into the film's generally sordid depiction of the strip club, where Destiny struggles with money problems and smiles through racist, degrading comments from customers.
Hey, Lucy Lou! Hey, Lucy Lou, come here. This is my boy Dan. You mind taking him for a good time?
I'll take him.
Come on, Dan.
While Destiny comes across as slightly awkward, Ramona exudes confidence. Their introduction is filmed like a love scene, with Destiny mesmerised by Ramona's beauty and success.
Doesn't money make you horny?
It's hard to tell whether she's attracted more by Ramona's charisma or by her ability to make money. Destiny immediately seeks her out for advice, following her to the roof where Ramona is posing in a gigantic fur coat. This is probably the most arresting costume in the movie, emphasizing the difference between Destiny and Ramona at the start of their friendship. When Ramona invites Destiny to warm up inside her fur, it's simultaneously maternal and seductive. Fur coats have long been a sign of wealth and glamour. There's also a definite undertone of 1970s pimp imagery here, flipping the script for Ramona's role at the club. She's dominant, she's powerful, and thanks to the coat and her sprawling, commanding posture, she looks like an emperor on a throne. Jennifer Lopez is only 5'4", while Constance Wu is a few inches shorter, but the film accentuates their height difference to make Ramona seem like a giant. They have different builds, but more importantly, they have very different body language. This contrast becomes less obvious later on in the film, when Destiny and Ramona become equal partners in their criminal gang, leading a team of strippers who seduce men in bars, drug their drinks, and steal their credit card details. At the height of their success, Ramona buys Destiny a luxurious fur coat of her own. Their scam relies partly on the women's sex appeal and partly on the gullibility of their targets. Most of the men in Hustlers are total non-entities, a stream of sleazy Wall Street guys who assume it's totally normal for 3 or 4 unbelievably hot women to approach them at a bar. Costume-wise, they're virtually identical, dressed in boring office wear. The only relevant detail is the quality of their shoes and watches, which the women use to figure out which marks have real money. There's an obvious contrast here with Destiny's boyfriend, who has eyeball-searingly tacky fashion sense and is clearly less rich than her customers. Set between 2007 and 2014, Hustlers really nails a particular type of late 2000s fashion. To my mind, it's the first true 21st century period drama. Watching Hustlers, you might easily believe this film was made 10 years ago. It feels like a time capsule of a very specific era, with certain trendy fashion choices that now feel amusingly dated. But what does dated actually mean? As a rule, fashion trends take about one generation to become cool again. If a trend is recognisable from 5 or 10 years ago, it feels dated. But once it's about 20 years old, it becomes retro. We see this in the fact that 1980s fashions began to re-emerge among millennials, and that Gen Z kids are now playing with styles from the late 90s. A really great example of this phenomenon is the movie Grease, which came out in 1978 and depicts a quintessential 1950s high school setting. It's the peak of retro, timed perfectly for an audience who either didn't remember these trends the first time round, or were now old enough to feel nostalgic about the period. In Hustlers, Destiny and Ramona belong to the era of Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie, a time when female celebrities were dressing in low-rise jeans, crop tops, flashy artificial fabrics, and juicy couture tracksuits. Costume designer Mitchell Travers actually used Recession-era paparazzi photos as one of his main resources when researching the film. These women are really into brands, from statement handbags to rockstar jeans.
Ta-da! I'm designing my own swim line.
In one hilarious scene, Ramona explains her plans for a line of denim swimwear, echoing the short-lived personal labels of C-list celebrities.
You know, a lot of people are afraid to wear denim in the ocean, but I swear that these get more comfortable when they're wet, specifically salt water.
In real life, this was the period when Kim Kardashian broke out as a celebrity in her own right, rather than just Paris Hilton's reality TV sidekick. The clothes and accessories in Hustlers belong to a culture of consumerist fashion, highlighted by several shopping sprees. It's just one of the film's many statements about class and capitalism. In an interview with Vox, the film's costume designer compared its setting to The Great Gatsby before the 1929 Wall Street crash. A time where fashion was all about excess and displays of wealth, like the flashy jewellery and rhinestone-studded jeans worn by the girls in Hustlers. From the get-go, we're introduced to a setting where women are commodified and exploited by wealthy men. Stripping is a job like any other, but it's one where, in addition to the usual annoyances of customer service and unreliable income, the workers are barely seen as human beings. The film also draws clear parallels between stripping and retail work, where employees are treated horribly for even lower pay.
What if I got somebody to cover my shift? Mercedes said that she could probably do it.
Oh my God, come on. Took me forever to figure out everyone's stupid schedule.
I know.
Destiny and Ramona do their best to work within the system, but when the 2008 financial crash hits, they're forced to game the system instead. The film takes care to explore the moral ambiguity of their choices. While some of their victims were truly harmed by the scam, most of them are depicted as Wall Street assholes who got what they deserved for exploiting women and thriving in a fundamentally unethical industry. We see this unfold through the eyes of an outside character, a journalist named Elizabeth, played by Julia Stiles. She's interviewing Destiny in 2014, several years after the crimes took place. Elizabeth comes from a comfortable background and went to an Ivy League school. We get the impression that she's a feminist who sympathises with Destiny's position, but there's an obvious class divide between the two characters. As Destiny points out, Elizabeth has never had to do something truly degrading for money. In these interview scenes, Elizabeth looks frumpy, while Destiny is very carefully dressed up. She wears a pristine white suit, the colour of purity and innocence, accessorised with gold jewellery that makes audible noises throughout the interview.
How much of this is going into the article?
Oh,
It's just, I really hope it's not some story about all strippers being thieves or whatever.
not at all.
The casting in Hustlers plays a huge part in its success. Constance Wu is a successful sitcom actor, but she's not really a public figure, so audiences don't have preconceived ideas about her personality. This makes her a good choice for a point of view character. Meanwhile, Julia Stiles is known for playing tough women. Elsewhere in the supporting cast, we have some very entertaining cameos from Cardi B and Lizzo, and the main gang includes Keke Palmer and Lily Reinhart, playing into Keke's comedic talents, and Lily's cute, girlish image from the TV show Riverdale. And then there's Jennifer Lopez, who has the luminous charm of a classic Hollywood star like Marilyn Monroe.
And now, let's welcome to the main stage, the one, the only, Ramona!
In situations like this, it's sometimes hard to immerse yourself in the story because the actor in question is just so famous. Lopez is already a sex symbol, and the film doesn't attempt to change her appearance. However, her performance is so sensitive and compelling that Ramona is absolutely a distinct character in her own right. Lopez balances Ramona's charm and confidence with a deep undercurrent of compassion for her friends. I think she's actually a better actor than she is a singer, which is kind of wild considering the fact that J-Lo is better known for her music career. But in the end, while Lopez was praised by critics, she didn't win any major awards. Hustlers was a critical and commercial hit with an A-list star, combining a fun, accessible story with relatable political themes. But it was also a film starring women of colour, telling a story about capitalism and sexual exploitation, where the main characters were morally ambiguous criminals instead of tragic victims. I suspect that when awards season came round, some voters just didn't take Lopez's role seriously. The costuming situation was similar. Hustlers depicts an era of fashion that isn't seen as chic or classy. These clothes were popularised by celebrities who were widely regarded as vacuous bimbos. They embraced an intentional kind of tackiness, while also being judged by the public and harassed by the media. Several had their sex tapes leaked by ex-boyfriends, and tried to take back control by monetizing their sexuality as well. This was the peak of paparazzi culture, and Jennifer Lopez was actually one of several singers who made music videos about their own relationship with tabloid media. Costume designer Mitchell Travers pinpointed this cultural moment with forensic accuracy, overlapping with the film's central ideas about wealth and class. The main characters are sex workers, who sometimes dress for the benefit of sleazy men, and sometimes dress to their own tastes, which were shaped by contemporary trends. It's an impressive example of costume design in every regard.
Are you kidding me? A bag can never be too big. Come on, let's bring you up.
Thanks so much for watching Behind the Seams. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you'll never miss a future episode. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.